welcome to Nighthawk Racing and the hashtag F1RST Championship. Firstly, I'm Sarah Hawkey. You can find myself and the rest of our drivers here on the Nighthawk Racing YouTube channel. You can also check out the entire back catalogue of seasons 1 to 3 of the F1RST series, mini-series and off-championship events, and one-off race events, all of which are highly competitive and a lot of fun. Also, please check out our Instagram and TikTok for other content and races there. Link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen for more information. But now, it's time to focus on the event at hand. You join me for round 8 of season 4 of the F1RST Nighthawk Racing Championship, and we'll be covering the red lobby here at Road Atlanta tonight. Before we get into tonight's race, I'm just going to give you a little bit more information about the event itself and the championship as a whole. So as you can see on screen at the moment is our calendar. We have a 10 race championship calendar going to several different tracks that GT7 has to offer. The racing itself will be divided into 2 lobbies, the red and the blue lobby. There are 2 racing events with a qualifying session, and the order of the events is the qualifying session comes up first. This sets a grid for the feature race. Next up is the sprint race, which is based on reverse average points scored, and then we go straight into the feature race, and like I said earlier, the qualifying session sets the grid for the feature race. So, up first on the racing events of the night is the sprint race. The sprint race will be 15 laps. The grid is formed via how the drivers line up in the reverse average points scored across the season for a rolling start. And the feature race will be 58 laps. All drivers must use 2 different compounds of tyres in this race, whilst also starting on the grid on the compound that they set their fastest lap in qualifying earlier. And as a reminder, during the lobby tonight, in the blue lobby, drivers have full driver aids such as traction control, ASM and ABS. And in the red lobby, they only have ABS enabled on the driver aids, that hardcore driving experience to really challenge our drivers. So before we jump into any racing action tonight, let's talk a little bit about High Speed Ring. The High Speed Ring is an original track that has appeared in every GT game so far, except for GT3 and GT Sport, but the track has returned for GT7 with a slight redesign. The track is 2.4 miles long, or just under 4 kilometers, and it's only got 6 turns in total. So obviously a lot less than some of the other tracks that we visited this season, but by no mean feat. Although it's only got 6 corners, it's not an easy track at all. It's got very fast flowing sectors, and a lot of high speed corners, so be careful on the entry and the exit, and obviously when you put your power down. But I think this track is going to play into people's strategies and obviously the top end speed of their car. If your car's got that little bit more top end speed, you'll be flying around. But obviously remember that it does chew through your tyres. But the track itself is located near a water dam, and like I said, the track is well known for its fast flowing nature, so be careful about when you put the power down and your speed into the corners. But like I said, it had a little redesign when it came into GT7, and that design has extended the second and third straight and sharpened the second corner, making it more like a hairpin. This might be favourable for some drivers, but the grandstands were also added on the outside of turn 2 and the grass runoff was removed. The pit lane that starts at the end of turn 5 and the beginning of turn 6 was renovated in favour for a pit lane that starts and ends on the first straight. Obviously bear that in mind, but apart from that, let's go see where everyone qualified and get into the sprint race.
Okay, and here we are for Season 4, Round 9, Red Lobby at High Speed Ring. First up, we have the head of Fusutu Racing, Coach in that Toyota Supra Castrol livery car. What a car it is, and he will be starting from pole position. And I have heard he's got an interesting strategy for both the sprint and the feature coming up, so keep an eye out for that one. In P2, we have Koulios. Love him or hate him, he's in P2 in that NSX. And he will definitely be after a good result here. And he had a season, I think it was season 2, it might have been season 1, but he had a sprint win in the red lobby here, so he has definitely got some form. And P3 we have Nigel, who I recommend you checking out his YouTube for the VR segment from him, and it is well worth a watch. P3 for him. P4 we have Sidley in that Lexus. Not a car that's overly suited to the track, but he has been steadily improving throughout the season, so good luck to him. In P5 we have the return of Giles Giggles or Max Velocity in that green RX Vision. In P6 we have T50 Phil, one half the T50 gentleman, the other one in the blue lobby this weekend, and we will be seeing what that GTR can get up to in the red lobby. And in P7 we have the hotly tipped Charlie in that Ford GT. Could be very good around here, Sarah. But with that in mind, can you take us through the rest of the grid, please?
Of course I can. In P8 we then have Sophie in that Ferrari 458. Starting just behind her we have Pedro in the BMW M6 and P9. In P10 we have Wise Fodderboy, also known as Fodder, in the Porsche 911. And joining him in P11 is Midnight ISO, still sporting the chrome and black McLaren 650S. In P12 we then have Mercedes in the newly updated Team Year 1 livery. And in P13 we currently have our championship leader in the Dark Lord GT in that Toyota Supra. And joining us for tonight is Kirk as well in P14 in that Dodge Viper. Quite an interesting grid, quite a full grid as well, of some very highly experienced drivers looking for a big haul of points, being the penultimate round, so it could get quite spicy, the sprint race midnight.
Quite right, and I don't think there's one driver there who I would consider a weak link to Red Lobby here either. Each and every driver does have a really good shout at podium or a win here, so it is going to be a very entertaining one. For me, I'm going to say keep an eye out for Charlie in that Ford GT. We know it is good, and a lot of other drivers have a lot of form at the moment. Koulios has been very good around here historically. Coach has been on an upward trend with his driving, and you have to say keep an eye out for Dark Lords, because he can actually win the championship at this event this week. So a good couple of results from him in the sprint and or the feature, and you might see Dark Lords take the championship. With that in mind, Sarah, do you have anyone that you're going to hotly tip?
Oh, like you said earlier, I think the Ford GT could be really good around here, obviously being a car that's quite, got quite a lot of top end speed. But apart from that, I think obviously, like you say, the Dark Lord probably knows that he can win it potentially at this round, so he'll be definitely hot on everyone's tails, trying to get past them as soon as they can. But Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I don't think anyone could have a really good result around here. Obviously, Sidley starting up in P4. We're not quite sure how the Lexus will fare around high speed ring, but I definitely think with Sidley behind the wheel of that Lexus, he's definitely got a chance. So I'm a bit excited to see how he gets on.
With that in mind, let's go racing.
Let's do it. So all the drivers are heading across the start-finish straight now. We joined up with Coach in pole position in that Toyota Supra, looking for a good getaway. But we join us here at High Speed Ring for round number 9, and in the commentary booth, Pedro is joining me for this red lobby commentary today, and everyone's just about past the start-finish straight, Pedro. And away we go. It looks like we're going to have a quite interesting race around here tonight.
Yeah, first of all, a pleasure to be here alongside you. Yeah, it does look like a mix of strategies, with Coach being the only one on softs. Wondering what he's got up his sleeve, with most of our drivers starting on the mediums or the hard tires.
Yeah, quite a bold and aggressive strategy by Coach there, so let's see how we can get on, starting from that P1 position. A couple of moves already so far into that turn 2. We've had Phil and Sophie having a little bit of a battle, and it looks like a four-way battle for that P4 position with Giggles, Sidley, Charlie and Sophie. So it's heating up already at the end of lap number 1. Obviously this track isn't the longest track that we've had on our calendar, so it's short and sweet, and but hopefully that will mean loads of overtakes, as all the drivers at the moment are really close to each other as Pedro goes for a move on Sidley. Sidley taking that low line here. Not sure if it's the ideal line, as quite a few cars are racing past him at the moment. But yeah, Sidley unfortunately losing quite a few positions there, Pedro.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but obviously when you're going side by side through there, it's really difficult for the person who's on the inside line to try and keep his momentum going and his speed without at some point maybe causing contact with the other drivers. So I think Sidley playing it safe there and trying to avoid an incident. But Charlie, in the meantime, does look like he's going to go for a move off the inside of Nigel.
A little bit of a bump for Nigel. Ooh, Charlie holding the pack up just a little bit there. A little bit of a bump from behind from Giles there. Pedro looks like he got out of that unscathed. But yeah, Giles and Charlie having a little bit of a battle now. Although it did look, Phil gave Pedro just a tiny tap there, which may have caught Pedro out a little bit by surprise as Sophie goes round on that outside and now the inside of this corner coming up. But yeah, Charlie getting a little bit of a poor exit out of that turn 2, which let Nigel through. Nigel having to scrape the wall a bit is probably the best way to put that, but gets away relatively unscathed, and not a lot of scratches on that car yet. I feel like this track, by the end, there's going to be quite a few scratches on the paintwork, Pedro.
Yeah, I was about to say, as I saw Midnight getting past Fodder around the outside on the final corner, a good move from him, but also there was a bit of a group with Sophie and Phil and other cars, and Giles got put into the wall a little bit. So, as you were talking about scratching your paint, that's our first moment, I think.
Yeah, I think like a permanent marker writing on a bit of water and saying this person was here. I feel like all the drivers are going to do that around High Speed tonight. As we had Sidley giving a little bit of a bump off to Fodder there, pushing him a little bit, actually pushing that momentum of the Porsche on, as he's currently fighting with Giles round this under the bridge section here. But a few moves last up which we didn't quite catch, with Pedro going round on the inside line, getting Phil in the GTO and up into P6, as currently Coach, obviously starting on that soft, he's got quite a gap to Koulias behind him, but obviously during practice I think a lot of the drivers found that the softs aren't the tyre, the optimal tyre around here. So how long can Coach keep that pace up for, Pedro?
Yeah, I'm wondering about that, because the tyre is already looking quite warm. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what he comes up with in the next few laps. But I think he's already pulled quite a gap, in this case to Charlie now, who's up to P2. He's about 4 to 5 seconds ahead of him, so yeah, it's just a matter of him seeing how much he can make those tires last.
Yeah, exactly right there. Midnight going for a very, very brave and late braking move into that turn 2. nearly got past Phil, but got past Pedro. I think Pedro maybe on that high line got a little bit caught out by Phil Midnight coming through, so he does lose quite a couple of positions, but yeah, Midnight going for a very brave but late move, trying to catch a few drivers out, as we have a little bit of a battle emerging between Koulias and Nigel. Koulias potentially dropping a place as he was P2 last lap, so a potential off-track excursion that we missed. But Charlie in that Ford GT up into P2. You can just about see Coach in the distance there in that Toyota Supra. But like you say, obviously we'll have to wait for the Supra tyres to be better days for Charlie to catch him up. But Nigel looks like he's going to go to that inside line, the low line. Koulias on the middle line at the moment in that NSX. Looking for a better race this race, as Sophie looks like she's going to the inside line. It could be free wide into turn 2, although Nigel gets slightly ahead. Sophie on that low line, all coming together, the 458's coming together at the exit of turn 2, and that means Koulias and Phil might have the momentum to get past the two Ferraris here, Pedro.
Yeah, it does look like it. Obviously, when the pack is all bunched up like this and around the track, that isn't necessarily... Ooh, as we see, Phil, I think, lost the rear end of the car, actually. They managed to hold on well, although losing a position to Midnight. Yeah, sorry for diverting from what we were talking about. Yeah, I mean, in a track like this, a few sections, obviously the track is wide enough so that people can go side by side, but maybe through turn 2 it's probably one of those places where you don't want to have more than 2 people side by side, and even then it's quite scary as it is. But yeah, good to see them all going through that corner completely out of damage for all of them. Yeah, a lot of good racing.
Oh, a little bit of attack from Phil and Sophie, but Phil going round the inside line, getting past Sophie here, with Pedro just on looking this four-way battle currently for that P3 position, so the last step on the podium. All the drivers wanting to get onto the podium. We've seen quite a lot of new drivers getting on the podium as Fodder dives into the inside line of the BMW driver of Pedro, but Pedro on the inside line of the next corner is able to fend from Fodder in that Porsche 911 at the moment, as we have just slightly ahead, a little bit of a pinch from Sophie to Phil there. Phil going back to P6 and looks like he's going to potentially lose a position to Pedro in that BMW, taking the low line. Phil in the GTR taking the high line, but just goes to show you that high line, Pedro, the speed that some of the cars can get around there and onto that start-finish straight is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a high risk, high reward kind of situation, because obviously if you get it wrong, unfortunately it can happen the same that happened to Nigel there. I think he got hooked up on the curb that is in between the actual asphalt and the barrier, and you can either just lose lots of time and or collect damage in the process. And it's always, yeah, as I said, a very high risk, high reward move. Because if you do get it right, you'll carry a lot of speed going onto the main straight.
Got a three-way battle before this section under the bridge with Sophie, Koulias and Phil again. Koulias just managing to hold on to that P3 position for now, but Sophie wanting to take that off of him at the moment. It looked like they were going three wide across the bridge as Dark Lord has entered the battle here for that last spot on the podium. So it looks like everything's going to heat up at the moment between these four. Like I say, Midnight and Pedro not too far behind, so they'll try and look to capitalise if anyone makes a mistake. And it looks like Sophie may have got a little bit tangled together with Koulias and got herself attached to the wall, which meant that Dark Lord, Midnight, Pedro working together, giving each other a little bit of bump drafting on the start-finish straight, and potentially Midnight looking for the inside line here on the Dark Lord, trying to get ahead of his his closest battle on track at the moment and in the championship standing as well. Obviously Midnight, the Dark Lord and Pedro in that top three, so obviously round 9 important points to be scored here as they look. Sophie goes into the inside line. Koulias currently still fending off from all of these drivers behind him, but if I was Koulias, I wouldn't look in my rearview mirrors at the moment, Pedro.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I also wanted to add that Coach has made a pit stop, and he went onto another set of soft tires. I'm wondering if this will pay dividends maybe later on in the race, but it did seem like a bit of a risky strategy, but I mean, I'm curious to see how it all works out in the end. As he went from being our race leader, roughly 4 seconds ahead, now on to P14 and the last.
Back there, big incident between Fodder and I believe Nigel. We've got the Porsche facing sideways in that turn 5, turn 6 area as Coach comes flying past, nearly getting caught out by Fodder, and it looks like Coach did get affected by that Porsche 911 in the middle of the track. So our recent pitter in Coach unfortunately gets caught out by that incident, and yeah, obviously not what we want. We've just pitted, so hopefully he can get the car started again and try and get back into the pack. But yeah, a bit of a casualties in that last lap being Nigel and Fodder. Caught the back end of that incident, but just goes to show, you know, high risk, high reward for that corner, and unfortunately it was high risk but no reward for quite a few drivers there, Pedro.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Citroën was also caught up in that instance because he also picked up some damage, quite a lot of damage actually. So yeah, it is very unfortunate to see how it all unfolded. As you said, it was very high risk sort of move, but this time it didn't pay off. But yeah, I mean, it's part of what makes this track what it is. The slightest of mistake can be extremely costly, and this was clearly the case, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, unfortunate for them, but talking about the positives again, we've got Midnight up into P2. Phil just being able to get that P3 with a little bit of help from the Dark Lord bump drafting him into that first corner here. But yeah, somewhere in that last lap, I think Koulias must have had an incident himself as well, or got caught up with that turn 5, turn 6 incident, because he's dropped all the way back down to P8 and off to the podium. So like I said earlier, you know, the drivers in Pedro and Midnight looking to capitalise on the drivers' mistakes, and they definitely did that within that last lap, keeping it clean and keeping it on the road. Obviously unfortunate for the quite a few drivers that did get caught out in that. But someone that we've not talked about so much already is Mercedes, Pedro. He's kind of had a quiet start to the race, but he's there, he's in the group now, so I think he'll be the one to watch now.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of the interesting characteristics about Mercedes is that sometimes we might not notice him as much during the race, and this isn't necessarily bad, but we always know that then when there's a situation where you can capitalize on, he's always going to be there applying pressure and making sure that he drives at his best in order to make the most out of those opportunities. And at this moment in time, considering how the tire wear from Sophie and Philip in front is, who are both on the mediums, as opposed to Mercedes on the hards, he could make a few moves happen here in the upcoming laps.
Yeah, and I think what we've always said about Mercedes as well is that he's so respectful, you know, he won't go for what I'm going to call the iffy moves where, you know, you're not quite sure if both parties are going to survive the corner, but Mercedes always kind of waits to make a move. You know, he's able to make that decision quickly if it's, you know, a risky move that he should maybe wait a corner or so to complete, or whether it's, you know, go for it, get in front of the car. So I think Mercedes has got great race awareness, and you know, 9 times out of 10 that bodes well for him when he's racing, because he can get some really great results, and obviously hoping he can get another great result in the sprint or the feature race tonight. Obviously sporting a slightly new Team Year 1 livery, which looks phenomenal, very bright, you can always see it from space, but that's what I like about that livery. But obviously going back up to the front, Charlie obviously starting quite high up at the start, and you know, where Coach did have to pit, he's got a little bit of clean air, and I think he'll be looking to capitalise on that, as obviously he's got no immediate threat right at the moment.
Yeah, I also wanted to add as well, because he in before Coach pitted, he already had a bit of a buffer to at the time Koulias behind him of about 2 to 3 seconds. And that for GT is absolutely rapid, and around the track like this it will truly excel, and he's really making the most out of this opportunity to lead the race. His tire wear is looking a bit concerning at the moment, but hopefully he'll be able to manage that until the end of the race. And just as another note, I think Koulias went down to P8 because of of a racing incident that happened in the middle sector. So I think he got a little bit caught up, went off the track, but he's, good to see him still running, and hopefully he can still get a good result here.
Yeah, I think we've always said the sprint race is, even if it doesn't quite go your way, it is a great, data gathering session where it's short and sweet. You're able to kind of see how the car reacts to dirty air, obviously how fast the tyres wear, so it could, alter race strategies a little bit. So it's definitely worth, carrying on. So, full thingies to Koulias for carrying on after some incidents, because I know how difficult it can be when you get into that mindset where you're slightly annoyed that you've got into an incident and you don't know whether it's worth carrying on. So like I say, good on you, Koulias, for carrying on. And again, some people that we haven't quite mentioned just yet is Giles. He's unfortunately just lost at P9 to Sitterly after making a mistake in the turn 5, turn 6 area last lap, but he's still on the back of that Lexus RCF with Kirk not too far behind. Kirk, we've not mentioned him yet, but he's back tonight for High Speed Ring in that Dodge Viper, and looking to have some good results around here. He may, a birdie may have told us that he's using the VR, so it's his first experience on that, so let's see how he can get on. But currently he's in P10 with our Nigel coming in, not Nigel, Phil coming into the pits as well. Our second pit stop in the sprint race, which is not something we see very often, Pedro.
Yeah, unfortunately it did look like his front right was completely worn out, so it was making him quite difficult to be able to control the car, especially through the middle sector, where he actually got overtaken by Koulias. But yeah, as we know, this track also very high tire wear in these conditions. And going through going based off the data we have from most of our drivers, and it does look like they are all struggling quite a lot with tire wear at the moment. Especially in the battle for the race win at the moment.
Yeah, you can see that gap.
The tire wear is quite big as well.
Yeah, you can see it. It's a good point that you've raised there with the tyre wear as well, because you can see how much that gap between P1 and P2 has closed up in the last few laps. Obviously, Midnight is edging closer and closer to Charlie, but obviously we're on our final lap now. Has Midnight left it a little bit too late, and does Charlie know that he just needs to get through these last couple of corners to get the sprint race win? But obviously it's getting closer as well, so I think any mistakes from Charlie here, Midnight will be ready to pounce on that top spot of the podium. But he's got Dark Lord not too far behind, and Pedro as well, so it's this P2 battle could heat up in the last few corners if they can get a good run onto that banked corner of turn 6. And somewhere, Mercedes going for a little drift, didn't mean to catch that Mercedes, I apologise. But obviously with Phil pitting, he did gain a few positions there, but somewhere...
Sitterly overtook Sophie.
I was going to say, somewhere we lost Sophie for a few seconds there. She was on the battle with Mercedes, so unfortunately somewhere Sophie having maybe a little bit of a mistake as she gets caught on the wall there, which does let Koulias, Sitterly and Giles through. Unfortunate, not what you want in the last lap, but everyone has crossed the line. Obviously Charlie coming across in that P1 position, very good race from him. Midnight in P2. Dark Lord managing to hold Pedro off for that P3 position, but obviously Pedro just outside the podium in P4. We then have Mercedes coming home in P5, Koulias in P6 after carrying on, so it just goes to show if you can carry on you can get a good result. P7 we have Sitterly, which is also a great result from him. Pedro, if you want to take down the rest of the grid for me.
Absolutely. So in P8 we have Giles, had a bit of a difficult race. The car did look quite happy on the rear, that Mazda RX Vision, but he still managed to get away with a good result. Then Sophie in P9 was struggling quite a lot for tire wear at the end of the race. Then Kirk in P10, Fodder in P11, Nigel P12, Phil in P13, and P14 onto our very own coach from Fasuto Racing.
Obviously, quite an interesting race. We didn't quite know it finished then. We were geared up for a couple more laps it was that highly entertaining in that sprint race, as it was just very close racing between all of the drivers. And obviously I think this track definitely does invite close, fast racing, so I'm even more excited for the feature race now to see how everyone's strategies play out and how the drivers go on a slightly longer session. But yeah, obviously unfortunately for quite a few drivers, strategy for the sprint race not working in their favour and getting caught up in some incidents, not helping the race either. But I'm sure they can take a few minutes break, get their head down for quali and try again for the feature race. But yeah, enough said. Let's go and see where everyone qualified, and then jump into the feature race and see how everyone got on. So after a very interesting qualifying session here at the high speed ring, we have our pole sitter in Charlie in the 4GT setting a time of a 109.158, so a very, very fast time indeed. He set that time on the medium tyres. Joining him on the front row of the grid is Coach in the Supra, setting a time of a 109.161, so incredibly close to beating Charlie's time, and he set that time on the soft tyres, so looking for a quick getaway on the start of the feature race. But joining him, just behind him in P3, we have Mercedes in the 911, not confusing at all, but setting a time of 109.614, also setting his time on the soft tyres, so again looking for a quick getaway. In P4 we have Pedro in the M6 with a 109.647, setting his time on the medium tyres. And in P5 we then have Fodder in the 911, setting a time of a 109.811. Should be 911 considering he's in the Porsche, but I'll have words with him afterwards. But he set that time on the medium tyres. In P6 we have one half of the Nighthawk family in Midnight ISO, setting a time of a 109.841, and surprisingly enough he set the time on a hard compound tyre, so obviously thinking longevity for his first stint at the high speed ring. But P6 on the hard tyres, what an awesome job Midnight did there. But joining him, also setting his time on the hard tyres, was the Dark Lord GT, but he set a time of 109.992, so quite a few mix of tyres there. But Midnight's going to run you through the rest of the grid.
Thank you, Sarah. All I can say with the first half of the grid there is obviously someone like Coach. Obviously, he's going to be trying for a very fast getaway, like you said, but big mix of tyres there. But anyhow, P8 we have Koulios on the medium tyre on a 1:10.025 in that NSX. In P9 we have Phil on a 1:10.048, also on the medium tyres in that GTR. And in P10 we have Nigel 1:10.155, also on mediums. And the rest of the grid have chosen to run hard tyres. So Sophie in that 458, 1:10.277. And Kirk in 12 on a 1:10.377. And then we have Sicily in that Lexus, a 1:10.406 rather. And in P14 we have Giles on 1:11.114. And like you said, Sarah, there's a bit of a deviation there in tyre strategies and different options, and I'm looking particularly at Coach and Mercedes, like I alluded to a moment ago. They're going to be off for a fast start, but you have to say this is one of those tracks. It's a very long run down to turn one. They're going to have to hope to have the rub of the green on this one and try and get away in that second sector to make use of those soft tyres, because they're going to go off very quickly on here, and they do not want to be fighting in the back, because those soft tyres are going to last probably a handful of laps, as you can see with a lot of drivers on mediums and even those on hards. It's going to be an interesting one, Sarah.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Obviously it's a risk to start on the soft tyres for sure, but obviously, like you say, Mercedes and Coach, they're wanting to take that risk. They're wanting to try and get a fast getaway, maybe potentially get in the lead as soon as they can, try and hold off the likes of Midnight and Dark Lord starting on the hard tyres, try and create an offset maybe. But it's going to be a very interesting start to the race indeed, so I think we should get into it because I'm excited.
I will agree with that. Before we get cracking, I will state also, watch out for those Ferraris on the start line off the grid. They have been rapping, and so is that Honda NSX, and it's always another factor into the race. But I'll tell you what, I'm enthused about this one. Shall we get going?
Yeah, let's do it. So all the cars are lined up on the grid, the lights are counting down, the cars are ready and roaring to go, and they're about to go off, and the drivers are ready and rolling, and we have a very good start from Nigel there in the Ferraris. The Ferraris have almost a superpower on the starts there, and we've currently got drivers going 5 wide, Pedro, into that first corner, and hopefully everyone gets around nice and safely, as it currently looks like it's okay. But as I say that, I may have jinxed it. A big incident. Koulios getting sent round, and I think quite a few drivers picking up damage there. A multi-car incident, Pedro.
Yeah, I was fearing that was going to happen, even though I didn't want that to happen. But yeah, just going 4 or 5 wide there, it was always going to be a bit tricky. I think, unfortunately, Phil tried to go a little bit higher on his line and ended up tapping Mercedes into Koulios, and Koulios ended up spinning.
And we're getting reports that quite a lot of the drivers do have some damage, so we are waiting to see if the race is being red flagged. Quite a few cars going quite slow, obviously indicating their damage. Mercedes pulling off to the side, potentially, race ending damage there. But as we join onto lap 2, I believe we have got a decision that the race has been red flagged, so all the drivers will look to restart the race in just a second. So join us for the second start of the feature race. All the cars have been repaired, they've come back in the garage, and they are ready and raring to go for the second feature race start. And in pole position we had Charlie, who has got Coach right behind him currently. Obviously Coach starting on the soft tyres. Koulios going out to the grass to get an early P3 position, but and in that inside line. But yeah, and also Nigel getting a phenomenal start in that Ferrari yet again. But hopefully it's not a repeat of the red flag incident. We've got currently people going 3, 4, 5 wide into that turn 2 complex. Pedro, it's already been quite an interesting race as Mercedes gets battered a little bit against the wall. But yeah, so it's all going. Giles has been sent round. A little bit of a collision between himself and Fodder has sent Giles round, so not what you want in the first lap.
Yeah, unfortunately for Giles there to get involved in that. He's still running but having some damage. We'll see if he'll stop already at the end of this lap. But it did look like a much cleaner start, although I was getting a little bit scared when I saw them going for wide into turn 2.
Our new leader and Coach.
Yeah, and Nigel went around the outside of Koulios, who actually lost 2 positions in the process. Yeah, Coach getting a really good getaway, obviously with him and Koulios. Apologies, it wasn't Koulios. Yeah, starting on the soft tires. So him and Mercedes, sorry, that's what I should say. Yeah, but also, I've noticed that Charlie has picked up some rear damage.
Fortunate for him. I wonder where he's picked up. Potentially something we may have missed in that first lap. It was quite a busy first lap, shall we say. But yeah, unfortunate for Charlie. Obviously coming off of a little bit of a collision between Nigel and some of the other drivers. I think that caught Nigel out a little bit by surprise as he runs wide, and Sophie inherits that P3. Yeah, obviously Charlie. I just managed to catch that as well. Unfortunate for Phil, he is round just before the tunnel section. Very unfortunate. Hopefully he can get back into the race and get a few positions up. Yeah, unfortunate. Never what you really want in the first couple of laps to pick up damage, because it does really affect your strategy. You kind of have to throw your original strategy out the window and try and come back into the pits. Think of going a little bit longer into the race. As talking about longer into the race, we have Nigel, Sophie, and Charlie having a little bit of a battle in that very high banked corner of turn 1. Charlie losing quite a few positions there, potentially because of that damage. And like I said earlier, obviously Charlie coming away with that sprint victory. We'll be trying to look, trying to replicate it in the feature race, but I'm not sure, with that damage, that it's making that 4GT very easy for him at the moment, Pedro.
Yeah, unfortunately, with him having damage on his rear bumper, it's certainly going to make quite challenging to get through some of those corners, especially the middle sector. And also kind of needs a little bit of traction, especially out of turn 2 as well. But yeah, let's see what he does. It's quite unfortunate that he got that damage. I think he's going to go into the pits there.
Yeah, very early pit stop from Charlie there. Midnight trying to sneak a little bit of slipstream from Charlie coming into the pits, but maybe potentially getting in nice and early, repairing that damage, and then heading back out again. As we see Sophie going for that P2 position, Kudos as well going for that podium, going for the low line. Dark Lord on the outside line, and Nigel unfortunately missing out on this battle for the podium at the moment. But Dark Lord very close, tucked up behind Sophie. Kudos on the inside line. They're going to get very close in the exit. Oh, Sophie hits the wall a little bit there. Gets a few more scrapes on her car, but I don't think she picked up any damage because of that, but definitely lost momentum to Kudos and the Dark Lord there. And Nigel gives Sophie a little bit of a tap there. But all nice and fair at the moment as the two Ferraris going side by side under the tunnel. Nigel just getting slightly in front of Sophie here, but Sophie on that inside line, which will be the outside line, and the high line, which is obviously the more optimal racing line around here. So Nigel will have to work a little bit harder to get past Sophie in the next lap. But obviously Mercedes, like you say, on the soft set of tyres. He's tucked up just behind Midnight, giving Midnight a little bit of a bump draft so they can catch this little pack just in front of them, as the Dark Lord has popped his head out, looking to overtake Kudos. He gets that move done and dusted way before turn 2, and one of his favourite places to be on the podium. But talk about coach at the moment, he's had a flying start. Obviously, he's on the softs as well, so he won't be able to go that long into the race, but as much time as he can save by getting as far away from the other drivers as he can will definitely help him. But anything spotted caught your eye, Pedro?
Yeah, well, apart from that move that Midnight is trying to attempt on Sophie, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to complete it just yet. I have noticed that Kirk and Citroën are quite close to each other for the last few laps. They have been quite close to each other, sorry. And they're trying to work together to catch the pack. But I've also noticed that unfortunately we've had 2 retirements in Giles and Charlie.
Very unfortunate. Obviously, after picking up that damage and the incidents that they were in that first couple of laps, sometimes you just have to park the car up and try again next race. So very unfortunate. Hopefully, they come back with the heads held up high next race, and looking to reignite the battles that they may have been in this race. But talking about battles, we've got Midnight on that inside line of Nigel here, looking to brake a little bit later than Nigel and carry the speed around the low line. Doesn't manage to do it there, and Mercedes has caught up to the back of Midnight here, but Fodder round on the outside, side by side with Midnight now, gives a little bit came out of nowhere there, Pedro.
Yeah, very, very good move from Fodder, very opportunistic as well to go around the outside there. It does look like Sophie and Nigel had a bit of a collision there, but they're still running. Very opportunistic, very good move from him. But now they're side by side again, I think Midnight and Fodder. Just wanted to briefly mention as well Coach, who's about 5 to 6 seconds up the front at this moment in time, but he'll probably have to pit soon because that front right is not looking good.
No, obviously the soft's not lasting as long as probably what Coach wants them to do right than now being in the lead, having some nice clean air. But hopefully, like I say, he can use the full life of those soft tyres, then come in for another set of tyres, and hopefully, carry on that phenomenal pace that he's got at the moment. as we see Sophie going on the high line, Nigel on the low line, and Sophie getting that move done and dusted. And Sicily up into P8 is looking at this ongoing battle between Fodder and Midnight ISO here. Obviously Porsche Fodder going onto the inside line of the next corner, forcing Midnight out onto the outside, and Midnight having to give up that position just for now. But I'm sure Midnight will be looking towards this bank corner here, trying to get the optimum line and get slingshotted out onto the start-finish straight, which will hopefully give him a little bit more of a boost into the next lap. As I said that, Fodder going for an overtake on Nigel on the start-finish straight here. Nigel looked like he had a little bit of a poor exit compared to Fodder. But Fodder thinking more about trying to get away from Midnight as he gives Nigel a little bit of a bump over the start-finish straight, which will definitely help Nigel and himself catch Sophie, who's a little bit in the no man's land, as Midnight dives into the inside line, catching Nigel and Fodder completely by surprise. And Sophie, obviously as well, he's gone for the inside line again, so a double overtake in the first couple of corners by Midnight ISO. But he does look like he's going to lose out to Sophie again. Obviously taking that low line, you can't quite carry as much speed as you want to around there. But that was an entertaining couple of laps, couple of corners, from Midnight there, Pedro.
Absolutely, yeah, just very impressive from him. It all started when Citroën did give him a slight bump draft on the main straight, and he got that speed, that extra bit of speed and momentum to go up the inside into turn 1. But then, obviously, with him being on a less preferred line into turn 2, it meant that Nigel and Sophie could run away with it just by sheer momentum. Also, I must say, very impressed with Citroën so far. He's been able to keep up with the rest of the pack quite well. And out of everyone in the top 6 ahead of him, it does seem like he's in a really good position in terms of strategy, because he's both got really good pace at the moment. The tire wear is looking quite good compared to most of the hard runners, and he's also got the best fuel, or the most amount of fuel out of everyone in that top 6, as he just moved up to P6 actually. And we also, in the meantime, saw Coach and Mercedes both pitting for hard tires.
Yeah, unfortunately those soft tyres are only lasting 9 laps into the race, so obviously a short and sweet stint by those two drivers there, getting onto a new set of tyres and thinking about going into the race a little bit more. And hopefully towards the end it'll play out into their favour, starting on the softer tyres, but everyone else starting on the mediums and the hards. And
sorry, some contact there between Nigel and Citroën midway through the last corner, which made Citroën hit the wall and obviously lose momentum and the position. Fortunately, it was only that, and he didn't pick up any damage, so that's really good to see. But he's obviously now need to try and catch back up with Kirk and Nigel. It does look like Kirk went for a move up the outside of Nigel. It's a really good move from him.
Yeah, Kirk thinking I need to get past the Ferrari as soon as I can. I wasn't waiting to do so. He was quite brave going for that move just before turn 2, just before the braking zone. As I say that as well, we've got a little bit of a battle between Sophie and Fodder here. Sophie going onto that inside line, making sure the Fodder knows that she's there and she's ready to go past if she can, which they're currently going side by side. Little bangs to the door there, obviously just showing that each other is on track, and obviously giving each other enough room as they go into this T5, T6 corner. Oh, it looks like Sophie unfortunately giving that Fodder a little bit of a tap, which made that Porsche stick to that barrier, so probably not what Fodder wanted there, but he's not too far behind Sophie at the moment. Yeah, going back to what you were saying about the Nigel and Citroën. Citroën up on the back of Kirk here, giving Kirk a little bit of a bump draft in order to catch up that the pack a little bit more, so obviously picking up no damage with that incident is really played in Citroën's favour here. But yeah, just goes to show that turn 5, turn 6, that high banked corner, as soon as you get close to a driver and they give you a little bit of a tap, that barrier is very unforgiving, as Kirk hit the barrier there a little bit, which has promoted Citroën into that P6 position, but it's not over just yet. Well, as I said that, it's over. I thought Kirk might have gone stuck to that inside line there, but he thinks better of it and lets Italy back through. We're just having a quick little flick through the pack. Obviously, we've got Phil. He's back out, still circulating around the track, which is good to see. Obviously, like you say, a few retirements so far, but obviously Phil carrying on.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I think Phil picked up damage somewhere.
Oh, potentially it may be another incident, or just maybe pushing a little bit too hard. Obviously, it's very easy to do around here, around the track. It's very unforgiving. Like I said, the barriers. As we see Kirk going for a move on Sicily, taking that low line. Sicily taking that slightly higher line and meeting that apex later. But this is quite an interesting battle between these two drivers here.
Yeah, it does seem like they are also kind of working together and try to use each other's slipstream to try and catch up with the drivers in front. They both seem to have a pretty solid pace so far. I am seeing that Kirk has got worse tire wear than Citroën and fuel, so he's probably gonna have to pit sooner.
That is the downside to that Viper. As much as it's a great American car that everyone knows and loves, it is very gas guzzling and very kind of harsh on its tyres. So, and I'm sure Kirk is feeling that right now, and thinking that he'd wish for the car to be a little bit better on those both things. But I'm sure he'll hold on for as long as he can. As we go back up the grid, we've got a little bit of a battle between Midnight and Koulios. Obviously both racing and knowing each other quite well, so I'm sure they'll give a lot of room between each other. As I said, at Midnight trying to meet the apex nice and late. Koulios obviously trying to go back onto that high line. Could have been obviously a potential incident there. I think Midnight gave a little bit of a, I'm braking now to make sure that Koulios knew that he was braking, and obviously the two not coming together. But yeah, Midnight into P2, and Koulios currently sat in that nice comfy P3 position. Obviously good race start from Koulios. They got a bit tangled up in that red flag incident. He's not let that shake him, and obviously the confidence is still quite high, which is good to see in Koulios.
Yeah, I was about to mention that he was having a quiet race, but a very good race so far, as he was holding on to P2 and quite close to Dark Lord for a lot of the time, which, as we know, it's not really easy. So if you're even within a closing distance of Dark Lord, that should indicate that you're doing quite well. But yeah, I think Koulios might have to pit soon though, because you can see that tire wear on the right-hand side tires. It might have to mean that he's going to cut this stint a little bit shorter than the other drivers, but it's still very impressive nonetheless, being able to do this amount of laps on those medium tires and to keep the sort of pace he's been doing so far. Also, I just wanted to quickly mention a few things. Sorry to interrupt you there. So both Father and Nigel went from the mediums to hards, with Nigel taking more fuel on board, the full tank actually. But Phil seems to be stopped in the pit lane, so I do wonder if we're going to have another retirement, unfortunately.
Potentially. I was keeping an eye on that because I did see the car come in, and the pit crew haven't put in new tyres, haven't filled up the car with fuel, so like I say, potential another retirement. But obviously very unfortunate, but obviously getting in a few racing incidents, picking up some damage, obviously affecting Phil's race just a little bit more than compared to the other drivers. As we come out onto lap number 15, obviously we'll keep an eye and confirm if Phil has retired from the race. As Sicily goes onto that inside line now, him and Kirk side by side into this section here. Sicily now on the inside line, Kirk having to take that higher banked corner, trying to meet the apex slightly later, but thinks better of it, stays on the high line. Sicily resuming on that higher line, so they're going to go into T2 very close to each other. Sicily braking a lot later than Kirk there, obviously both giving a little scrape to the wall, but yeah, Sicily looked like he got quite the jump on Kirk there.
Yeah, I think Citroën is clearly benefiting from having better tire wear at this point in the race, and yeah, it's been really good to see them both being so close to each other, and also just working together to try and catch up to the pack. Yeah, it does. It does look like. Well, I also spotted. Sorry, I know I'm going. I'm drifting a little bit from what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, Kyrgios and Sophie are pitting. Oh no, only
No.
Kyrgios. Sorry. But I was actually surprised to see that Kyrgios opted to go one lap longer on this stint. Obviously, it should help him out later on. But I was thinking that he would have pitted by the previous lap. Let's see what tires he goes
just
on
a
to.
tiny bit of rubber left on those tires. So I think very opportunistic from Kyrgios there, literally getting all of the rubber out of that set of mediums there, especially on that front right. But obviously, like you said earlier, this track especially, high risk, high reward. Sometimes you've just got to call it when the car, when you notice that performance drop and obviously the tires falling off of a cliff. It's just best to pit as soon as you can, because obviously you don't want to go around for a couple or more laps and see your performance fall off of a cliff. So I think Kyrgios was getting to that point where obviously he would definitely have to pit for those tyres and made the right call before any kind of incidents or blown tyres happen. But we have unfortunately lost Phil from the race. Obviously the GTR of Phil retiring from the race, so we have had a few retirements. Obviously sometimes after a red flag, starting again, getting into that mentality of getting ready for the start can affect some of the drivers and some of their their first stints, but getting caught in a few racing incidents. But obviously we've still got 10 runners, and those 10 runners so far, I think most of them have come into the pits, bar a few of the drivers at the top. But yeah, it's an interesting race so far. Obviously it looks like it's going to start getting dark soon. Nice little sunset over the nice bridge section that we have here. But in his favourite spot, probably ever, is the Dark Lord in that Supra in P1, and sitting nice and comfortably in his favourite position at the moment. Pedro obviously having to fight a little bit for it. He's coming into the pits now, but obviously that will promote Midnight into that P1 position. But Dark Lord having a pretty good race so far.
Yeah, he's definitely made the most out of that start, and obviously getting clean air pretty early on into the race because of Coach having to pit. He was on the soft tires. Actually did wonders, and he's been consistently lapping quite fast. I am curious to see what tires he'll move on to, if he'll get his mandatory pit stop out of the way, or if he's going on to another set of hard tires. But I've also spotted that unfortunately Coach around lap 13, I don't know exactly what happened, but I do know that he wasn't really able to turn the car and hit the wall into turn 1, so he's been carrying damage from lap 13 onwards. Yeah, I think he's gonna try and hold on for as long as possible until the next pit stop. So whilst not being ideal, he's still lapping at a pretty decent pace, so hopefully things work out for him in the upcoming stints. Yeah, in the meantime, well, I think Midnight is going to pit. He's just entered the
hard
pits.
Tires.
And
I'm surprised by Sophie not following him in there. Obviously, looking at that, the front right especially, they've got very similar wear between Sophie and Midnight. So interesting call for Sophie going round again.
Yeah, I was about to say, it does look like Sophie, well, she's the only one who hasn't pitted yet. And I was thinking that, I thought she was going to pit in that lap. But surely she'll have to pit soon, because it will get riskier and riskier as she goes on. Especially in that Ferrari, that, as we know, when tire wear starts kicking in, it's really difficult to keep it under control. Yeah.
As we see Midnight coming out of the pits, right beside Dark Lord, but he will lose a position to Citily. But that's probably right where Midnight wanted to be, not too far away from Dark Lord. Planning that pit stop nearly to perfection there, Midnight was. But obviously I was quite intrigued by this little bit of a battle here. Citily on the back of Dark Lord, and Citily's going for it. He's not saying that this isn't my battle to fight. I want to get into the get into the lead. I want to have a bit of a battle with Dark Lord, and I think Sitley are doing a phenomenal job so far. Not too far off of the back of Dark Lord here.
Yeah, I completely agree. His pace has been phenomenal from the very first stint onwards, and in a car that probably you wouldn't expect to really suit this track, he's been doing quite an exceptional job, as you said there, and being able to keep up with Dark Lord. It did look like he had a bit of a moment there at the exit, where he's holding on, and yeah, I'm super impressed with Citroën. He's definitely been doing extremely well today, and hopefully it keeps on going for the upcoming stints, because it is really good to see him fight in those positions. Just wanted to quickly mention as well that Koulias, curiously enough, went for the soft tires on his pit stop. He went for almost a full tank. So yeah, as we know, those tires probably won't last long, but maybe he's thinking that it can give him a bit of a buffer for the upcoming stints, as he'll have really good pace now, and maybe try to create the gap to some of the cars behind. Yeah, looking forward to see what happens there. And Sophie has made her pit stop, and she went onto the hard tires.
Interesting. So obviously, like you say, Koulias may be potentially trying to offset himself from the drivers that he was battling. But interesting decision that he went for a full tank. Obviously, like we spotted earlier, the soft tyres only really go for 9 laps, so maybe trying to save time in his next pit stop. But obviously, the soft tyres, we won't see their full potential on a full tank. So yeah, obviously interesting call from Koulias there. Hope it works out for him. But it's not a tyre that we see in the middle very often. Usually, obviously, it's the start or the end tyre. So like I say, quite an interesting call from Koulias there. We'll see if some of the other drivers spot that decision by Koulias and potentially think maybe they want to go for it as well. Obviously, the fastest lap at the moment is with Coach with a 109.538. That probably won't be beaten for quite a while. Obviously, we've got quite a few drivers on the hard tyres and on the mediums. Coach setting that on the softs earlier. So if anyone can do it, I think Koulias will try an attempt in this middle stint. But like you say, obviously full tank, it won't help out his efforts getting that fastest lap, as he does get attached to the wall a little bit there. And he's coming in
already.
Very interesting. A bit bizarre. He's coming in already. I didn't think that he picked up any damage, so maybe regretting his decision to go on the soft tyres there, Pedro.
Well, as I'm seeing here from the data, it does look like he would have only been able to maybe do an extra lap on those tires. So it's better probably for him, or he probably thought it was better for him to come into the pits now and just get out of those soft tires before anything could have happened. Like, as you know, with those softs, they go out really quickly around here, and the least he wanted to happen was to lose the grip, maybe like towards the end of the middle sector or to the last corner, because that could have meant that he could have picked up damage as well. So probably thought better of it. And yeah, let me now go on to a fresh set of hard tires actually, and see how it goes from there. Again, nonetheless, as you were discussing, an interesting decision for him to opt going onto the soft tires, especially with that fuel load. But it does technically mean that he didn't have to spend a lot of time refueling in this pit stop, which it should
Nigel moving out of the way of Kirk there. Kirk going through on the high line. Nigel on that low line. Kirk going for that meeting of the apex later, and that was a move that I wasn't quite keeping an eye on until probably at the right point there. Obviously, Nigel getting caught up with the ball there. Kirk obviously losing a little bit of momentum there. Looks like he struggled to get the power down coming out of turn 2. So has brought them closer together again. But yeah, interesting battle between the Ferrari and the Viper here. And yeah, I'm not sure if Nigel made a mistake in that last lap or so, which did bring them a bit closer together. Or, you know, as Nigel being in that Ferrari is very hard on its tyres. So maybe potentially... you know, well, to be fair, he did dive out of the way of Kirk, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe
I actually have some information for you. Sorry to interrupt you there, but I've just been told from the Ferrari pit crew that apparently Nigel has an issue with his throttle. He's not being able to fully apply the throttle at this point in time, which is obviously making him lose huge amounts of time. And he hits the wall, actually.
Yeah,
he hit the wall there.
As Sophie is coming across as well.
That is the worst possible scenario for him, because it's the least thing you want to happen. I think he's hit the wall again.
Yeah, I thought potentially maybe Sophie was probably thinking a little bit, trying to get past Nigel. Obviously, Nigel unfortunately having some issues, like you said. Obviously not what you want there. Obviously these things happen. Sometimes obviously cars and you know, setups they do get a little bit of a pain, shall we say, but obviously unfortunately, yeah, dropping Nigel from that P7 down to P9. Hopefully can get that issue ready, obviously fixed, and head out back again.
Oh, and Coach and Mercedes are pitting now. They were the first drivers to come into the pits after being the ones starting on the soft tires. Went on the hard tires for this stint, and I'm really looking forward to see what they're going to do next. Bearing in mind, the coach does need to repair some damage as well, which might make him lose some time.
But obviously, hopefully, it will save him a little bit of time in the long run as well. Obviously, repairing that damage so he doesn't have to think about it again. Obviously, the main thing is that when he comes in, he repairs that damage. He doesn't want to get any damage for the last, you know, half a race, sorry. But I was just having a little look. Obviously, we've got Fodder in P1 position at the moment. Obviously, probably a pit stop behind Dark Lord and Sicily and the people behind him. But obviously, on the hard tyres as well, he looks like he come in slightly earlier compared to some of the drivers. So obviously, he's getting to that point where that front right is going to you know, see better days, but I think he's enjoying, you know, currently rolling around in P1, getting some clean air, and you know, showing what that Porsche is capable of. Obviously, we know how fast Fodder is, especially over one lap pace. Obviously, setting quite a few pole positions in the championship this season. So good to see him running so quite well. Obviously, getting caught up in that first kind of lap drama, but since then had a pretty good race.
Yeah, I totally agree there. It definitely seems like the Porsche is struggling a little bit more at this track, but he's making it work with the best of his ability that he's got. I think he's doing very well considering the performance issues with the car around here. Well, if I was him, I'd go into the pits.
He does so.
He is.
He must have heard you. I believe Pedro is available to be a strategist if needed. You must have known. But yeah, great call there, Pedro, from time in that pit stop. That was perfect. But obviously, that will drop him off of that P1 position. But you know, he's in with a chance if he can fuel up quickly, get back out, and you know, slightly offset himself from some of the drivers. We put him in a good position towards the end of the race, and someone probably enjoying the most, obviously at the moment, is Sicily in that P2 position. He's obviously lost a little bit of time to the Dark Lord, but then again, the Dark Lord is you know, super fast, and I think he's got some sort of rocket fuel in that super because he's you know, he's always in or around that P1 position. But Sicily not too far behind in that P2. Probably having the race of his life at the moment, Pedro.
Yeah, he's roughly the 2 to 3 seconds behind Dark Lord at this point in time, and I must say I know I've mentioned this before, but it's amazing to see him fighting those positions already, especially with someone like against someone like Dark Lord, who, as we know, is a very fast driver. Yeah, I think as well, like he's really been able to outperform the car, because you really wouldn't expect the Lexus to be all that strong around here. But as you said, he's doing a phenomenal job, and yeah, really good to see him up there. I'm sure he's having a really good time.
Talking about really good times, I think obviously he won't be wanting to look in his rearview mirror, as you can see that chrome red and black McLaren of Midnight ISO getting closer and closer to him. Obviously Midnight will get up onto the back of that Lexus very shortly, and maybe a little bit of a battle between these two. Obviously they have raced quite a few of the races together, but I don't think we see these two often battling. So it's good. It's going to be quite interesting to see, these two racing side by side shortly. And like I say, I think obviously City enjoying the race so far, which is good to see. And talking about enjoying the race, I think obviously Kirk as well. He's had a few races off with a little bit of a break, coming back, and currently sat in that P4 position in the Dodge Viper. So obviously, hopefully Kirk having a pretty good race for himself as well, as we see Coach getting on the back of Nigel here, so potentially the Supra looking to pass the 458 Oxy, which hopefully is sorted out his throttle issues now. Obviously trying to do that on the fly while driving is an incredibly difficult job, and saying that, Nigel coming into the pits potentially looking to sort out that issue now.
Yeah, I think he has also, I've noticed, I think he sorted out the issue at the very same lap that he got overtaken by Sophie, but obviously with him running on very worn hard tires and that damage, it definitely wasn't easy for him, but hopefully he can now be clear of that issue happening till the end of this race and still be able to pick up some good points.
And unfortunately we did miss it because we were talking about Nigel and obviously his throttle issues. Midnight has gone past Citily down to P3, Midnight into that P2, but I'm sure Citily now he'll be trying to get in that slipstream of Midnight, trying to save a little bit of fuel, a little bit of tyres now, although obviously the dirty air might affect that Lexus a little bit more here. But yeah, obviously good to see these two battling, and hopefully, obviously we've got 28 laps left, hopefully the last 28 laps will be these two battling, and a good result for Citily. But just in front of them, obviously the Dark Lord in that P1 position after his pit stop, like I said earlier, in his favourite position, and got a good buffer in the championship standings at the moment, so looking to extend that over the likes of Midnight, Mercedes and Pedro. So looking for another clean sweep here if he can. Obviously not starting on pole position, so it won't be a grand slam for him, but I'm sure that's close enough for him. As we see Midnight running a little bit wide coming out of that last corner, but that looks like it's giving him a little bit more momentum compared to Citily, who's coming off the back of Midnight now, but not too far behind. So if you can keep up that pace, good job at Citily. And having a quick look, well, we have a little bit of a battle emerging between Mercedes and Koulias.
Last lap, Mercedes actually did go up the inside of Koulias in that middle sector, managed to overtake him, but then Koulias got him back on the main straight, and Mercedes, is he going to be, I think Koulias hit the wall there.
Yeah, which obviously has lost him quite a bit of momentum coming off of that section there. So an easy move by Mercedes there. Unfortunately, obviously, I'm sure Mercedes wanted to do that battle for a little bit longer, not having to pass Koulias because of making an error.
But it's over yet, sir.
Yeah, no, saying that, Koulias has managed to put his foot all the way down to the floor in that NSX and is getting closer and closer to Mercedes here in that turn 2. Koulos braking a little bit later, which closes that gap between himself and Mercedes here, although Koulos does look like he hit the barrier again a little bit there, so keeping a steady ground to Mercedes here. But yeah, it's not over until it's over, as they say, so we'll keep an eye on this battle, see if it reignites shortly. But apart from that, I think that's our closest battle on the grid at the moment. Obviously, going back to Sicily and Midnight, still kind of level playing field between the two here. So we'll keep an eye on that. So a couple of battles across the grid. Kurt coming in to get a new set of tyres and plan that to perfection because he only had 1% of fuel left in that gas guzzling Viper, Pedro.
Yeah, he definitely managed to calculate that quite well, and yeah, it's been a bit of a quiet race from him in a few ways. So he obviously had that battle at the beginning with Sitterly, with both of them pushing each other onto the other drivers. Now he's in a bit of a different position at the moment. That Viper does seem to be wearing out its tires, and especially the fuel, quite a lot quicker than the other cars. So that certainly made things a little bit more difficult for Kurt. But he's still got plenty of laps to go, so hopefully, he can still manage to get a good result. Everything can change, as we know around here, in a matter of seconds, really. So yeah, he's still got a lot to work for. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what this awaits. But in the meantime, Sitterly has pitted again, and he's out on the hard tires again, on around 76% fuel. Just ahead of Mercedes, who's catching up to
going to the end. I'm not sure if that's enough to get him to the end. Obviously, we've got still. So. Yeah, so we'll probably. Yeah, I think you're definitely right there. But having a quick look, obviously, Mercedes obviously not coming in for a pit stop has made. Obviously, he's got a lot more speed compared to Sitley, who's trying to get back up to racing speed here. So obviously, these three getting closer and closer to each other. Koulos on looking this battle here and probably looking to capitalise if these guys make a mistake. But yeah, obviously Mercedes keen to get a move done, I'm sure. Obviously on slightly worse worn hard tyres compared to Sicily. So I think this is a battle that could be brewing for quite a few laps. Obviously Mercedes will have to pit before Sicily. Still looking in a good position at the moment. But will they work together and bump draft each other a little bit, because there isn't a pack in front of them, or will Mercedes look for that that promotion into P6?
Oh, I think he's gonna go for it, Sarah.
Yeah, if you want to take it away, if you want to talk about these guys here.
Yes, so I think if I were in their position, I'd probably, as you said, I'd probably work together to hopefully, trying to catch up with the cars in front. Because they're about 6 seconds away from Fodder, who is probably going to have to pit sooner than them because he's got a little bit less fuel. Yeah, let's see what they do coming into the final set of corners and onto the main straight. And as we see, both Dark Lord and Midnight pitting again. So they're kind of mimicking each other's strategies at the moment. Let's see, they go out exactly at the same time, but there's a difference. Have you spotted it, sir?
Yes, I have. Although, who's that coming around the final? Got that as Coach up in piece 2, so splitting, well, not quite splitting Midnight and the Dark Lord, but just getting just out in front of them. But yeah, obviously I believe the P3 of Dark Lord is on slightly different tyres to Midnight there. I can't quite confirm at the moment, but yeah, pretty interesting between the two. Obviously still Dad Board Racing members, and they used to giving each other a little bit of strategic help. So maybe sharing a brain cell there. They thought of a very similar strategy here, and like you say, slightly mimicking each other. But sometimes that's what you want. You want to see drivers around you doing a similar strategy. Kind of helps your confidence a little bit, knowing that you've picked the right strategy because other people are thinking about similar ones. So I'm sure obviously Midnight and the Dark Lord will have a little bit of a joke later on about it. But obviously this could be a battle for the win here between Midnight and the Dark Lord. If they're on similar strategies, similar pace, we'll see right at the end who comes out victorious, Pedro.
Yeah, I mean, if Midnight really has to probably make the most out of the tire advantage he's got at the moment, because he's on the medium tires, Dark Lord on the hards. It does seem like Midnight also took a little bit less fuel on board, so hopefully trying to go for a shorter stint, really be able to push and optimize the performance on those medium tires. But I agree with you. I think this is a battle that's going to extend itself until the end of the race. So it should still provide us with plenty of entertainment until that point. As I've been keeping an eye as well on Mercedes and Citroën in the meantime. They've been swapping positions, but they're not really gaining time in comparison to others. So, yeah,
Obviously,
I think obviously Mercedes will have to pick sooner.
Yeah, it's that thing. Do you help each other close the gap, or do you just simply want to race and overtake? And I think obviously, if you ask a racer, well, actually saying that, City did just give Mercedes a bump draft. But I was going to say, obviously, racer's mentality, you just want to get in front of the guy in front of you, or the girl, or the person in front of you. So sometimes, drivers thinking about that before helping each other out, closing the gap. But I think these two, they're, like I said earlier, their racecraft is pretty good. So I'm sure, obviously, the moments where they really do have to help each other close the gap, I'm sure they will. As we saw there, obviously, City giving Mercedes a little bit of a bump. So, obviously, if they stay close to each other, I think, obviously, the best thing to do will be to, help each other out. But like you say, Mercedes will have to come in before Italy here. So it's just about capitalising on it while you can. Just in case, after you come out of the pit, you might not be that close to the driver again. So I say take full advantage of it if you can, and a little boost on that start-finish straight won't hurt. So let's see if they do it again. I'll stay on board with Sicily. And Sicily is getting close. He's in that slipstream of the Porsche. Is he going to overtake? He's going to go for the overtake this time. He's not going to go for the bump draft here. So thinking about, like I said, that racing mentality, getting into that P5 position and demoting Mercedes into that P6. Although it's not over until it's over. Mercedes trying to find a way round Sicily here. What do you think about going for an overtake into turn 2? No, he goes and brakes slightly earlier, so obviously to avoid those two coming together into turn 2. But this is probably going to be a battle where they're swapping positions, which is also good to see. But we may have a new leader shortly. Obviously, Coach inheriting that P1 for quite a while, keeping it warm and doing a phenomenal job at it. And it looks like Midnight and the Dark Lord are approaching. Although at the moment, the Dark Lord is getting a face full of sparks from that Supra in front of him. And this may be the lap where we see Dark Lord regaining that P1 position. They're not too far away from Coach, so I think it's definitely doable. But maybe next lap that move will be done, Pedro.
Yeah, I think obviously Coach is on pretty old hard tires at this point in time. But I think it's a matter of time until both Midnight and Dark Lord overtake him, just because of that tire advantage that they've got over him. And, maybe with Coach being in this position does also mean that with all of them being so bunched up, Midnight might try to make the most out of that opportunity as well, because he's been extremely close to Dark Lord for the past few laps.
Don't know if you saw there, he did put his head out and told Dark Lord that he's there and he's ready to make the move. But I think that was just Midnight saying, I'm here, don't forget me. And I think that was a little bit of a warning to Dark Lord that he's ready and raring to fight towards the end of this stint here. As I'm still on board with Mercedes here. But obviously these two are very close to each other, but going back up to that P1 position, it looks like the Dark Lord is approaching Coach and goes onto that inside line. Coach on the outside. The Dark Lord breezes past Coach here, but Coach obviously is tucked up right behind his fellow Supra of the Dark Lord. Midnight obviously at the end of this sandwich here. Obviously it looks like the two of the Supras did have a little bit of contact with the wall, but obviously Midnight losing out a few seconds to the Dark Lord. Obviously Coach in the middle of the sandwich right now. Not sure if that's where Coach wants to be in a sandwich with these two, but I'm sure he's trying to carry on and have the race of have a good race as well. But Midnight tucked up behind Coach now. We'll see if Midnight goes for the move here or thinks about getting that slingshot on the exit of this corner here. So both going for that high line around the banked corner. Midnight this time getting a face full of sparks, but tucked up behind that Supra. Obviously we know how quick the Supra is on a straight line, so will the McLaren be able to pass Coach into this turn 2 section here? It looks like he's closer this time. He's going to try and replicate the move that Dark Lord did. Midnight going onto the inside line here. Coach on the outside, not fighting that position over with Midnight. Obviously, like I say, different strategies, different battle. But yeah, obviously we have resumed Dark Lord into the lead, Midnight in P2 and Coach in P3, Pedro.
Yeah, as we were discussing, obviously we all know that they are on different strategies. And, Coach does have that racecraft and awareness to know that obviously he's in a different battle at this point in time. I think he's been doing quite a good job so far, making the most out of those hard tires, especially considering he was running the previous stint with damage from very early on. It's mighty impressive. I think he might pit shortly as well, because it does look like that front right isn't looking so good. Neither the fuel.
I think there's a petition for you to become a race strategist, Pedro, because you've called it yet again with Coach coming into the pits. Pedro is available for a race strategy if you need, because he's calling them perfectly here. But going back up, we've still got that bit of a battle for P1 at the moment. This is the closest battle we've seen for P1 during this race. Obviously, both, like I said earlier, on very similar strategies. So Midnight, I'm sure Midnight will be eager to get the win here. So he'll try and keep as close to the Dark Lord as he can and try and make a move. As it looks like Midnight got a little bit of a better exit there, but Dark Lord managing to hold on to that P1 just round this section here before the tunnel. The tunnel being very bright now that it's gone dark around the circuit. So obviously not affecting the drivers too much, but yeah, good battling between the two dad bod races in Midnight and the Dark Lord currently. But obviously Mercedes as well, he's dropped off a little bit off of the back of Sitterly, so Sitterly, still got that speed in that Lexus RCF and looking like he's going to try and chase down Fodder, Pedro. Although Fodder is coming into the pits, he's pulled all the way out to the left. So essentially getting back up into that podium spot.
Yeah, obviously he was in a bit of a different strategy to Fodder as well. And Mercedes also pitted. So I think we might actually see a bit of a battle between Fodder and Mercedes in the upcoming laps as well. But yeah, Sitterly just playing it a little bit more safe, trying not to get involved in an incident too much. It seemed like he was working with Mercedes for quite a long time, but they were also kind of like trying to overtake each other and really set whoever was in front compared to the other. But yeah, hopefully Sitterly with the clean air now. He's even though he has worn tires. Hopefully he'll now be able to run a bit more freely without having...
Sorry to drop. Battle for the lead. Midnight managing to get in front of the Dark Lord. Dark Lord had a bit of a strange moment there. He pulled out to the left, and Pedro sailed, not Pedro, Midnight sailed past on the right-hand side. Bit of an unusual move there by the Dark Lord, but maybe thinking that he wants to, bit of strategic call there. Maybe he wants to save a little bit of tyres in field behind Midnight this time.
Possibly, that could be the case. As I'm seeing as well, like his tires in field are, well, he's a little bit better on field compared to Midnight, but his tires are also quite warm, so he might want to save a little bit and possibly try to force Midnight onto pushing a little bit more on his lap times. And, maybe catch him off guard, or maybe try to get an advantage later on. Sorry. But yeah, now with Midnight being in front, they surely have a really good slipstream onto this main straight. Yeah, really good to see their battle, as we were discussing before during their pit stop. They were probably going to get, really close to one another during this stint. Yeah, Midnight also, I think we've missed it. He's currently holding the fastest lap of this race.
On the medium tyres, so that was a flying lap by Midnight there. Like you say, it slightly went under the radar while these two are having a little bit of a battle, but that's a phenomenal lap time, especially on the medium set of tyres. Obviously, when people think about fastest laps, you see them pitting in for the softs. Obviously, the softs obviously being not a tyre that gets them long into the race, but gets them, quick and trying to, get away from the drivers as quick as they can. But yeah, setting that on the medium tyres, way to go, Midnight. And we see Nigel coming into the pits currently now, which promotes Mercedes back up into that P7 spot. Someone we haven't talked about for a while is Kirk in that Dodge Viper, currently circulating in P10, not too far behind Koulios, so I think that's his next opponent, and he's set in mind to try and catch Koulios here. But Kirk again doing a good job on his first event back after taking a break for a couple. But everyone, I think, across the grid has done a phenomenal job so far. I don't know if you agree about that, Pedro, but yeah, it's been an interesting race, and we're on lap 46, and I have a feeling it's going to heat up towards the end.
Yeah, I have to say I completely agree with you. I think all of our drivers have been extremely good today, especially at a track that some people might consider it to be an easier track, but also it does require a lot of other factors when you're driving that might make it slightly more difficult. But yeah, I'm really happy to see everyone's performance today. I think Midnight and Louis are pitting.
Yeah, the leaders coming into the pits. So again, copying each other, or just thinking of a strategy that was very similar. Obviously, medium for Midnight and hard for the Dark Lord. We'll see if they decide to switch, or obviously, as Midnight went on the hards earlier, he could potentially do another set of mediums here, although we've got around about 11 laps to go. I think that might be just too long for the soft tyres. I don't think we'll see Midnight or the Dark Lord onto soft tyres, although you never know. Mediums again for Midnight. This is where it's going to really heat up, Pedro. Obviously both on the medium tyres. If they're going to set very similar lap times, and I think again this could be a battle for the lead, which will brew right until the last lap. But obviously Sophie and Sicily out in front now, and Nigel getting a blue flag from the fellow Ferrari 458 in Sophie. Obviously not too close at the moment, but again, obviously Sophie having a phenomenal race. We've not had the chance to really talk about her race so far, but she had a quiet race, but sometimes that's all you need to get some decent points, Pedro.
Yeah, I agree, and she's really been able to make those tires last quite long. I know I haven't mentioned it before, but she has pitted for mediums. I think she's going in again, actually. So that was good timing. Oh wow, she was on 0% fuel.
Kind of fine or to perfection, as I normally say. I'm not quite sure which. We'll have to see. We'll have to get her opinion on that. But yeah, obviously 10 laps to go now. We'll see if she decides to go on the soft tyres, which I think around this track it might just be on the bubble, as you might maybe get them round. But obviously at 9 laps, I reckon is kind of the life of that soft tyre here. But the two leaders, well, the net leaders in the Midnight and the Dark Lord, getting very close to each other in that turn 2 section here, and obviously Dark Lord having not on the back foot, because obviously this is a bit of a battle, but obviously he'll be getting the dirty air from that McLaren out in front of him here, so it might be, the handling of that Supra might be slightly modified as to earlier when he was having that nice clean air and he didn't have to worry about making the move. But getting very close to the back of that McLaren here is the Dark Lord. Will he be able to get into the slipstream and sail past Midnight here? We shall see. Obviously both, I'm sure, right foot, all the way down on the accelerator. They're going to work together. Dark Lord has given a bit of a bump draft to Midnight, and I'm sure Midnight very appreciative of that little bump draft there. But obviously, like I say, ex-teammates, helping each other out. But now it's Dark Lord's turn. He said, I don't mind giving you a bump draft, but I want that P1 back, and he gets it done in before turn 2. Midnight obviously back into that P2 position. That was that made my job even harder, trying to see where these two came out in that last lap, Pedro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lost for words, because they've been battling non-stop ever since that previous stint, and it's been electrifying really, because they're setting outstanding lap times, whilst being so close to each other, being so respectful, and having the racecraft and knowing what to do in these situations. It's something that you always like to see, and honestly, I think this battle is probably up there as one of the best we've had in our Nighthawk Racing F1 RST championships so far. It's you literally can't get your eyes off of it, because they're always so close to each other, and you just know that something is always waiting to happen. It's truly phenomenal.
I completely agree that obviously both of them having slightly different mentalities. Obviously, Dark Lord wanting to extend that championship lead, but Midnight here wanting to take a chunk out of that championship lead of the Dark Lord. So, both fighting for valuable points here. It's the penultimate round of our championship. So, this is the crunch time where points are very important. So obviously I think Midnight is fully aware of that and wants that win quite badly. But apart from that, I think he'll enjoy the battle between himself and the Dark Lord. Like I say, whenever these two get out on track, it's going to be a good race, and it's going to be a highly entertaining race, because they race with respect. They've raced each other for quite a long time here on the various games. Like I say, ex-teammates. Well, it's kind of still, but apart from that, the Nigel having blue flags from the Dark Lord here. Dark Lord giving Nigel a bit of a flash. Very late move by Nigel, moving out of the way. And I'm sure Dark Lord will be very appreciative, as I don't think he wanted to get tucked up behind him into that turn 2. Obviously, it's Midnight's turn to get round Nigel here. Will Nigel move out of the way of Midnight? Midnight is trying to get past him on that inside line. Nigel is aware that the Midnight is next to him, so he moves out of the way. Obviously, well done from Nigel there, not getting in the way of the battle for the lead too much. So, good that he managed to navigate the blue flags and not holding up the leaders too much. As we see, the Dark Lord is still on that high line. Obviously, we extended that gap to Midnight just a little bit with those the blue flag of Nigel, but I wouldn't write Midnight off just yet. Dark Lord pulling out weaving across the straight again, trying to throw Midnight off and trying to make him follow him to get that slipstream. But obviously Midnight again still not too far away from Dark Lord, but obviously 6 laps to go. That's all to play for. In P3 we currently have Coach, which again he's doing a phenomenal job after starting on the soft tyres, going for that aggressive start. Managed to get himself into P3, and he could potentially bring this to the end, Pedro.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think he's, especially considering all the circumstances he's been under during this race, he's really up for a great result here as it stands. I must say that when Citroën came out of the pits, they're not separated by much. So as much as Coach has a bit of a buffer at the moment, around like 3 seconds, he won't want to make any mistakes whatsoever. He needs to keep an eye on Citroën because, as we've stated a few times as well throughout this race, Citroën has been doing a really good race, and he seems like he's at one with the car around here. He has really good pace, so yeah, Coach wouldn't want to let his guard down and possibly let Citroën catch back up to him. And considering Citroën is also on newer mediums compared to Coach's old hard tires. Yeah, let's see if a battle arises in the upcoming laps between them two. It will be interesting to see as well.
Yeah, obviously they're both coming from Fusutu Racing, so again, they know each other quite well. They know how each other race, so a battle between them two, I'm sure again it'll go one in the books, and I'm sure will be an interesting battle as the battle for the lead again is brewing. Midnight going into that inside line, Dark Lord on the high line. It looked like they come out side by side on the exit of that turn there. Obviously it looks like Dark Lord is just slightly pulling ahead. As I say, that Midnight getting a boost of speed coming across that start finish straight, getting into that P1. Will he manage to hold on to the Dark Lord here into that turn 2 as Dark Lord takes the high line, goes into the apex, meets the apex later, then go back to the high line, and he's not too far away from Midnight here. Is he going to go onto the inside? Is he going to stay behind? He stays behind for now, and the two go in single file round turn 2, taking that high line on the green Astro, and yeah, obviously another move to the lead for Midnight there, but he's got the difficult job of trying to hold the Dark Lord back for 5 laps now.
That was really impressive from Midnight, I must say, because on that inside line on the final corner, you never managed to get as good of a run and as much momentum as when you're on the high line. But it did look like Midnight managed to make that move look relatively simple. And as we know, the Supra is quite a fast car on the straights, so yeah, I mean, it was mighty impressive from Midnight. But I do wonder if Dark Lord is playing this a little bit more strategically and try to save mostly tires onto the end, or if he's actually going to go for a move on Midnight here. I think, yeah, he stays behind for now. Maybe wanting to save the tires for later on.
Maybe, or very kind of brave defensive move from Midnight there. Obviously, a little bit of weaving on the straight, but I think he knew that Dark Lord wanted that late apex, so Midnight thinking, I'll get there before you do, and managed to cap him off just as the Dark Lord wanted to pass. But we've missed it as well. Obviously, watching this battle for the lead, we have had Kirk overtake Koulias. Obviously, Koulias having a little bit of a challenging race, or enter the race, shall I say, in that NSX, and Kirk sells past in the Dodge Viper.
Yeah, and Koulias, I must say, he's been carrying damage throughout this most of the stint. Yeah, he's got overtaken by Kirk, but I think he might have a little bit of a run out of the final corner. So they're actually working together as it stands. Also, I just wanted to briefly mention a few of the other drivers. Obviously, Nigel made an interesting comeback here. Unfortunately, he's maybe not as close to the drivers in front as he would have liked, but considering all the issues he's had to deal with during this race, he's still roughly around 9 to 10 seconds behind Kyrgios and Kirk, so should anything happen between them two, might be able to close down the gap a little bit and possibly overtake them. And
I do fear, though, that Kyrgios and Kirk are not too far away from this battle for the lead, so could they potentially, not intentionally, but get in the way of the battle in the last couple of laps, especially with the speed that Midnight and the Dark Lord have currently? Obviously, they're not separated by too much, these two groups of races so far. So I don't know, it might be very close between the drivers, but obviously we hope that the battle for the lead doesn't get caught in that blue flags. But sorry, what were you saying about Sophie?
Yeah, I was going to say as well that was a really good observation from you. Oh, and in the meantime, I think Dark Lord might go for a move here. The lead of the race, as we are approaching the final lap. He does go for it. But now, as you've quite well pointed out, will the drivers in front inadvertently have something to say on this battle for the lead?
Getting closer and closer. Last lap, obviously, they were on the other side of the bridge before Midnight and the Dark Lord entered the bridge section, but it's getting closer. They're separated by less than a corner now. So it's that thing. Do they dive out the way straight away? So I wouldn't want to get involved in this battle for the lead for too long, obviously, because I'm sure either driver will have a little bit of a moan after. But it's that thing, unfortunately, when you're racing under blue flag, but you're racing a car in front of you, it then becomes, impossible to make that decision as to, don't want to lose too much time from the driver that you're battling with, but then again, you don't want to hold up the faster drivers for too long. So we'll see how these two group of drivers sort that out, as it looks like Dark Lord is in the slipstream of Kyrgios, so Kyrgios obviously will be getting those blue flags waved right in his face now, and Midnight obviously looking to go for a move, but they both of them, P1 and P2, look to go onto the inside line. Midnight, a very opportunistic move there, thinks that he's going to go for the inside line just before Dark Lord did, and that's what got him back into the lead, Pedro, as obviously Kirk will be the next driver the Midnight and the Dark Lord meet. Kirk obviously holding Midnight back a little bit potentially here, as Dark Lord has got closer to Midnight, and Kirk with an indicator on, but Midnight,
that was so close.
They nearly came to each other, but Kirk moving out of the way. This is the final lap, so this is the battle.
Oh, he's going for it.
Dark Lord going for the inside line, giving a little nudge, elbows out to Midnight here. Midnight on the back foot into P2. Will Midnight be able to get a run on the Dark Lord here? We shall see. But this could be the battle for the lead that we've been waiting for 58 laps. Midnight on the back on P2. Dark Lord in P1. It looks like Dark Lord just got a slightly better exit. But Midnight is not giving up just yet. It's not over till it's over. Dark Lord waving. And that's where it ends. Dark Lord in P1 and Midnight in P2. What a battle between the two, Pedro.
Wow. Sarah, I think that they were only split by 1/10 right at the end there. Which... Wow, again, I'm baffled. I'm so impressed with that. I think it was a super enjoyable battle between them. I think we haven't, unfortunately, been able to probably comment on a lot more other than them, just because this battle was being so interesting and so full of action from the very moment it started that it maybe overshadowed a few things, but yeah. Also, really good to see both Coach and Citterly finishing P3 and P4.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on them. They had a phenomenal race. It looked like they got quite close towards the end there, and I'm sure Citterly probably wanted the race to go on for a few more laps to get right on the back of Coach. But what a result from Citterly! Obviously, I think that's the highest in the red lobby that he has managed to get, and what an achievement for him. He's done a phenomenal job around the high speed ring. But yeah, obviously the 2 911s finishing quite close to each other as well in Fodder and Mercedes. Obviously Kirk and Kudos having a battle towards the end as well, but obviously got it slightly interrupted by the blue flags. But across the board, what a race, Pedro.
I can only agree with that. It has been action-packed from lap 1 until lap 58. It was absolutely sensational. I must say. Unfortunately, despite the few retirements that we had, I think this race was really, really good. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to do a quick rundown on everyone and kind of analyze everyone's performance, but
we'll give everyone a quick rundown of where everyone finished
Yeah.
and just give a little comment on them. Obviously, feel free. You can start it off with the dartboard, and I'll take over when you hand over back to me.
I mean, okay. I mean, starting off with our race winner, the Dark Lord and current championship leader. I think proving once again why he's the championship leader at the moment. And yeah, we know like this battle with Midnight was simply sensational and a true demonstration of both of their talents as a drivers, and something that I would have liked to point it out before the race ended, but obviously during this battle, I think there are drivers with a bit of a different approach to the races. I think while as Dark Lord is very aggressive, and whilst also having that really good mix of being really sensible and knowing what to do on each stint, he's always, he's one of those drivers when you're watching him, you always see that he's under control. Like, he's got everything under control, all the variables really. And I think this race was a completely perfectly good example of that. When he strategically maybe just went behind Midnight to try and save tires and fuel, to have that attack right at the end and knowing exactly where to try to go for that move whilst being fair and respectful. It was really good to see them fighting out for as long as they did. And then obviously you have Midnight on the other hand, who's also quite a fast driver in his own way, but he's a bit more meticulous and he's a little bit more cautious in a few things. He's more methodic as well in the way that he approaches the strategy side of things, and also the way he needs to race with the drivers around him. It was a really good example, and yeah, it just shows that either Dark Lord's approach or Midnight's approach can be very good, because they've basically finished within 1/10 of each other, so it clearly tells that both ways can work out. It was really good to see them up there. Coaching P3 had a bit of a difficult stint along the way because of the damage he picked up, but he was always super consistent, really good throughout this race, and it's brilliant to see him on the podium. Then comes the driver that I really want to highlight in Sitterly. I'm super happy to see him finish in P4 this race. I know he wasn't feeling very confident going into this race, especially considering some of the previous races in the red lobby that went by, but I think he's really managed to extract a lot of performance out of that Lexus, which, in all fairness, and I'm not sure if you'll agree with me, I think wasn't a car that was really suited as well as other cars for this track. But I think he's played everything brilliantly. He had really good pace, his strategy was on point, and he got really good result and a great amount of points from this race, which should propel him up the standings. Then we have both Porsches of Father and Mercedes had quite races, had different strategies to one another. They finished quite close to each other, and I was expecting if the race maybe had a few more laps, we'd seen them battle a bit more, or have an interesting battle to the end, just like we had with Midnight and the Dark Lord. But yeah, both of them just always super in control. I mean, the Porsche didn't look like a car that really suited this track, but they both did very well as always. Always really good pace between them, and really good to see them there. Also, Sophie who had a mighty first stint on those hard tires, making them last longer than everyone else out on track, but then opting to go on shorter stints for the upcoming pit stops, and she did pretty well given those circumstances. It was a bit of a quiet race, but as always a good one from her. Then Kirk on his first race in VR, I think he did quite well, especially considering how much fuel and the tires that the car was burning. I think it was the only downside on the Viper today, and I think he managed to control that pretty well. Then Kyrgios went for a bit of a different strategy compared to others. Unfortunately, probably didn't work out as well as he would have liked, but then again, he also had to deal with damage, especially in this last stint, which didn't make things easy, but good to see him finish this race and persevering, just like Nigel. I think he was in a bit of a similar position, having to deal, with the throttle issues and the some damage that he picked up along the way. I can only say that I'm proud of them both for persevering and going on until the end. And hopefully they can also look forward to the final round and finish off the season in a good note. But Sarah, if you want to take on from here, I'm really happy to listen to what you have to say.
I think you pretty much summed it up perfectly. I don't think I have much to add. I agree with all your points thoroughly. And thank you for that rundown. Really appreciate it. And like you say, I think obviously battle of perseverance here for some of the drivers, but it was good to see the majority of them, pick themselves up after some potential one-lap dramas and carry on and to get some good results. Obviously, round 9, like I said earlier, is crunch point. You do want to pick up as much points as you can to kind of, put yourself in a good position going into the final round. And I think that's what quite a few of the drivers did, especially Sitterly. Like you said, so happy for him getting that P4. And obviously, I think he'll be delighted that he managed to get that P4 around a track that, like you say, may not be 100% suited to that car. But apart from that, I think now comes the difficult decision, Pedro, of who we're going to pick for driver of the day.
Yeah, I was trying to think ahead and maybe maybe trying to find a clear driver of the day, but honestly, it's not easy. I think Sitterly obviously really stood out as kind of like a dark horse in this race, and I think he deserves a honorable mention here, but I don't know. I think with that battle we had between Midnight and the Dark Lord, I'd be more inclined to probably giving it to one of them, or maybe both actually, considering the sets of results that they got. They were glued to each other, like on both races, really. So, what's your opinion on it?
Well, I think a massive shout out to Charlie for the sprint race. I think he had, quite a good result in that, and obviously, unfortunately, in the feature race, it was maybe not what he dreamed of. But obviously, a big shout out to him for the sprint race result. Also, I think shout out to the 911 and the two 458 drivers pushing through. Despite obviously their cars being quite difficult and obviously a high speed ring, maybe the tyre and the fuel being slightly amplified around this track. So obviously, again, good for them for persevering. I think they deserve an honourable shout out. But I feel like Midnight getting a double P2 is definitely in with a shout for driver of the day for me. And I don't know about you, I kind of want to give it to Sitterly as well, just because I'm just so happy for him. I think we need to give it to him for like a wholesome driver of the day, just for having such an awesome result in that awesome looking Lexus. So for me, I've got to say Midnight and Sitterly, obviously Coach and the Dark Lord being very, very close. If I could give it to all of the grid, I probably would, because I'm that sort of person. But
yeah, I agree. I think this was definitely one of the races where just everyone performed so well that I think we'd be able to find reasons to give it to everyone.
100%. I think it's been the toughest call for a driver of the day that we've had in recent races. But yeah, I feel like Midnight and Sitterly for me, and obviously, like you said earlier, I think everyone is in with a shout. So yeah, I think that just goes to show how amazing all the drivers did today. But before we round off, Pedro, obviously round 10, final round around Bathurst, or Mount Panorama as some people might know it. Obviously going to the land down under. It's going to be a difficult race, so I'm sure some of the drivers gearing up for that already. It's going to get dark, but those walls around Bathurst, they're very unforgiving. So yeah, obviously a challenging race for our final round. But how are you feeling going into the final round? Do you feel like championship battle? I think Dark Lord is a little bit ahead at the moment, and as you can see, obviously when we end, you'll see where all of the drivers finish in the championship standings. But yeah, obviously, what's your thoughts and feelings going into the final round 10 of season 4?
Yeah, I mean, just before that, I do agree with you. I think I don't know if you want to give it like as a joint driver of the day for both Midnight and Citroën, because I think that they've performed very well. I mean, I would also like to obviously mention Coach for this one because of the impressive performance in the feature. Fortunately, the sprint didn't go his way, but as I've also said, I think there could be a case to give the driver of the day to everyone, but I think Midnight and Citroën do deserve it quite a lot. I mean, Louis with the race win, or Dark Lord with the race win and feature race win and P2 would also have been a very worthy winner. But yeah, I think them too, I think they really do deserve it. In regards to Mount Panorama, well, it's probably going to be one of the most, if not the most challenging track we've had on our calendar throughout all of these seasons in Nighthawk Racing F1 RST Championship. It's a track that I quite like, I'd say, in a way, but also one where you need to be paying like full attention and giving it your all, like on every single lap, which can be quite difficult and quite draining as well, but a very rewarding track as well when you know exactly where the limits are and work within them, obviously. Yeah, it's a track we've never been to throughout these seasons, so I'm looking forward to that, to having that extra element of going to a new track. And in my case, hopefully I'd like to finish my season on a positive note after a few difficult rounds. So yeah, quite looking forward to it. And yeah, we still have a few championship battles probably going on, so looking forward to see how that goes for everyone else. And yeah, I mean, it should be fun. Also, yeah, possibly a little bit more of a difficult track than we're used to. But yeah, quite looking forward to it. How about yourself?
Again, I think you put it perfectly there about difficult, but looking forward to it. And I think what better place to end season 4 and the entertaining races that we've had so far. I think the season finale is just going to be another one to add to the list. But obviously we'll see where everyone ends up in the final race, and I'm sure it'll be all to play for. Obviously, points make prizes, as they say. But yeah, obviously, before we round off, thank you, Pedro, for joining me in the commentary again this week. And let's go.
Thank you for letting me join.
That's all good. Let's go here where, or how, or what the drivers thought about their race.
So I'm recording this pretty much straight after the race itself, and I've got to say, it's been a heck of a race at the high-speed ring. Just from the results side, a double podium, double second place in the sprint and the feature race. And Charlie, you're lucky I didn't catch him, my man. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, well done. He measured that perfectly. And I've got to say, on my own tyre, where not a lap longer, and both Dark Lord and Pedro would have got me, so call that a bit lucky. But that was just where the fun started. The sprint race was just a bit of chaos, bit of carnage, but no ill will from anyone, nobody doing anything they really shouldn't. It's just the nature of a tight track and people with similar speeds all vying for the same bit of tarmac, so it did lead to very challenging traffic, but eventually got through to take P2. Very, very happy with the result there. Very lucky to keep the P2. Again, one more lap and I would have lost 2, maybe 3 positions. But the feature race, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video for this one. Simply put, it was such a delight to race with so many good people and ultimately sharing the top couple of steps with both Coach and Dark Lord. Obviously, Dark Lord Louis, as some of you will know, is a previous teammate of mine with Dad Bod Racing, and I think we put on a bit of a show for the last few laps. It was a slow burn. It was one in the mid-race where we were just sort of slowly coming together on pace. So use the Mclaren top speed and slipstream to get on the back of Louis. Tried to play it a bit smart. Tried to pick up a couple extra % of fuel and try and make my pit stop just that little bit short to try and break the slipstream to him. But coming out of that final stop, he came out directly behind me, and then it was just a sprint to the end, which the last 3 laps, yeah, that's going to live in my memory for a long time. Admittedly, didn't come away with a win on this one, but I think 47 thousandths behind. Do you know what? I'm pretty happy with second place in this one. That was a brilliant race and one I will remember for a very long time. So thank you to our Dark Lord, or Louis, for helping put on a exhibition race for the last few laps. And that was Racing Nirvana, as far as I am concerned. Congratulations to Charlie for the sprint victory, and a big well done to Coach for the 3rd place and the podium. And I know how much everyone's put in a lot of effort to this track. I will say, sometimes it doesn't always go your way, but the next race really might. Keep putting that in that effort and enjoy the finale next week. And in the meantime, I'm looking forward to season 5 already. Thank you everyone, thank you for listening.
Qualifying was not as great as I had hoped. I didn't get a good slipstream lap, and unfortunately, sprint race was really good fun. There was lots of overtaking everywhere, and within all the chaos I found myself in a podium place and managed to hold off Pedro to take P3. Feature Star was very interesting. Cars everywhere and was tough to get a settled position on track. But once things settled down, ran a solid race, and then the epic tactical battle with Midnight started. Both trying to save fuel and swapping positions a few times. I thought I made the right choice passing with 2 laps left and catching back markers. Unfortunately, didn't realize the speed of the Mclaren in the slipstream, and he flew past on the start of the final lap, and then when we overtook Kirk in the S-Benz, he left just enough to sneak up the inside before the drag to the finish. Just holding him off to take a really fun race win. Probably the most fun race I've had all season.